Hey, welcome back, everyone. Just want to do a quick TLDR of the last three Jeffrey Epstein um files that I was working on. Um, so, in the last three, obviously, this is Ghislaine Maxwell Profer. She's speaking with the feds, and of course, the feds they don't really care because they're just there and they're like, okay, well, cool, like tell us whatever you have to tell us. In their mind, there's nothing. Um, their only job is to give her enough rope that she ends up hanging herself with it. That's their job. They're not there to debate her. They're not there to tell her if she's right or wrong. They're not there to verify her character or the type of person she is. Um, their job is just to sit, hit the record button, and listen. So when you're listening to that, keep that in mind. That the proffer is just her telling her side of the story. There's no rebuttals. There's no fact checking. There's nothing. It and the feds, as they're there, their entire job is just to sit there and ask questions. And you also have to keep in mind as well, her attorney is also there representing her, making sure that she's not going to incriminate herself. So obviously, everything that she says in the conversation is going to be geared towards her trying to play like an innocent victim and like as if none of this was her fault, sort of ordeal. So, with that out of the way, I kind of want to get to the TLDR, the cliff notes of what we know happened in the proffer exchange, and sort of get down to the brass tacks of like, well, what is in the overall image of the Epstein files? What does all of this new information change? Um, and First, I want to note that obviously, so I would love to put up like the court documents themselves and just start showing everything that's within this. However, I think that that is a terrible idea because the things that are in the court documents are so heinous that if I were to post them, it would almost immediately my entire channel would just get taken down. And you know, I mean, hey, whatever. Like but I'd rather not do that. So instead, we'll just kind of talk about what it changes and everything else. And besides, I mean, a lot of that stuff's kind of just gruesome. Like you don't even really need to know about it. But it is nice as a it's nice as a fact checking tool to where you can go back because, like I said, in the proffer agreement, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's not being debated against. Like the feds aren't there to corroborate her story or anything like that. They're just hearing her talk, So of course, she thinks that, the whole proffer thing is going to be public prior to her trial, and this can potentially help give her a more favorable light, like in terms of like public publicity, um, which it's funny because when you start reading like the trial transcripts between like Jane Doe v. Epstein and Jane Doe v. Maxwell and some other case suits that are between like Darren Indyke, who's like the lawyer that's in charge of like the entire Jeffrey Epstein Foundation and the finances within, like there's been people that have like sued him, as well, so that way they're not implicated. And it's funny because like those court documents ended up going out and basically just, now you're in a court document, so now you can't escape the fact that you're trying to weasel out of, being caught or whatever. um so and in a later time I'll probably go over more of that stuff, but ultimately really what I wanted to cover was the business side of Jeffrey Epstein's thing. So, and this has really changed the entire perspective of everything that's happening within this. So, for ever since the beginning of all this, all I've ever heard is, um, you know, Epstein the island, Epstein the island, blah blah blah, trafficking, this and that, whatever. Everybody's like overly obsessed with the island, which, hey, whatever, right? Like I get it. Like that's the thing that we've all been sold on, but that's the thing that's not true, really, necessarily. So what's funny is when you start going over the book, right? Like, and I've seen people do this before, where they bring up the black book and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, you see, there's this massage list right here, blah blah blah," and they just pretend like all of it's happening on the island. It's like, no, that's just a very tiny fraction of what's happening on the island. So um, when you understand the greater scope of it, you start to understand that it's way worse than you ever thought. Um, so Jeffrey Epstein at one point worked with um, Les Wexner, and Les Wexner was basically like they were pretty buddy buddy. I mean, like they would go dove hunting and stuff together, all sorts of stuff. Anyways, and it's very clear that they were, because you can go through, like, you can literally just go through the black book and look at all the Les Wexner contacts, and you can see that Jeffrey Epstein had the exact address of the Abigail plantation, which I think was a plantation that Les Wexner had that was like a memorial to like a late ex-wife or something like that. And anyways, so Les Wexner had all these properties, and then he kind of like let Jeffrey Epstein take those properties and then manage them. Well, surprise, surprise, Jeffrey Epstein takes all of these islands, and there is like a thing where people are like, well, Les Wexner, he's probably innocent, blah blah blah. I don't think so, just based on the information that like I'm seeing with Jean-Luc Brunel and Ed Razik. It seems like Les Wexner has a lot of like really scummy employees and people that he surrounds himself with, because these people both know how to traffic people, like human trafficking is what I'm talking about. Um, from even as going as far as foreign countries and then bringing them into the United States to operate as masseuses for this, you know, illicit masseuse business, which, we know it's not for masseuses, for massages, um, in hindsight. Um, but I think when you start to like look outside of the bubble of just Epstein and Les Wexner, you start to see there's more of a pattern there. There's a lot of abuse that happened as well with I think it was Jean-Luc Brunel. There's a lot of accusations from when he worked at modeling companies and he worked with Victoria's Secret. And there's a lot of people that have come out and they've accused him of terrible things outside of this. So it doesn't surprise me that he also knows how to traffic people to and fro, in and out of the modeling agency, uh, his own company, and then also to Epstein. So um, the fact that this guy, he has all these contacts and everything, it makes me think, well, okay, well, there's obviously you were probably doing this whole same thing with Les Wexner. You know what I mean? Um, you know, I don't think it just happened in a vacuum overnight, right? Like all these people were like, they knew what they were doing, and that's how they were able to like get in contact with each other and sort of network and create this weird fake massage industry thing that they created. Um, but it's very clear that the way that this entire operation worked there. So like I was saying before, the island, it's not just the island. It's more than that. It's Jeffrey Epstein had properties through Les Wexner, some of which he acquired personally, that are now in the Jeffrey Epstein Foundation as part of that whole LLC. Um, And in the court documents, you start to see all these addresses pop up. And so there is a Palm Beach, Florida location. There is and keep in mind the Palm Beach, Florida location is not the island. The island is way the hell out in the ocean. Like it would be closer to Cuba than it is to Florida. Like it's way out there in the ocean. So this is not the Palm Beach location. The Palm Beach location is a separate property. Um, then there's the California location, there's the New Mexico location, there's the New York location, which there's a bunch of photos that came out of that were sketchy and questionable. Um, you know, and I've looked over quite a few of the photos, but it's very clear that um, in the photos and the documentation to what happened on the Epstein Island and what happened on these properties, it's very clear that there's a lot of perversion because um, so everybody just always assumed that the picture of, I think it was Bill Clinton in the dress, the blue dress, everybody assumed that that was on the island itself because that's what we were told. We were told that by like, you had these like Alex Jones types people, telling everybody, oh yeah, there was the painting of Bill Clinton on the island or whatever, and turns out, well, that was at the New York location. So the photos you're seeing are not there. This isn't all on the island. This is at the New York location. This is at the California location. This is at the New Mexico location, Palm Beach location. And then there's other properties that we don't even know about that are probably still like within the Les Wexner's whatever foundation he has, whatever LLC he has his properties under. Um, and then not only that, but it's clear that Jeffrey Epstein was going out of his way to use properties from even using Ghislaine Maxwell's property as a place to get massages from. So, um, but it's very clear that it's more than just the island. The island is just a very small fraction, and when you start going through the black book, you start seeing these massage lists, and the massage lists are um, all the names of the people that have received massages at these various locations. So, and these are completely blacked out. And I can't remember, it's either the UK or the Paris, France one of the two. That one stretches like 3 pages through the book. So, the fact that there's that many names that it takes literally 3 pages of the black book to mark down people who have gotten massages, that's kind of insane. You know what I mean? That's a lot of people, unfortunately so. And then you start thinking about that, and then you also take a look at the list of masseuses, right? Like the quote unquote masseuses, um, and then you start to discover, well, okay, these masseuses, there's 240 something names uh, of masseuses, which means that they were trafficking masseuses to these locations. They were trafficking them to all of the different properties, to people that were going to those properties as like a Airbnb resort slash brothel sort of situation. So, like I said, you start putting it all together, and then it starts to paint this wider picture of, well, now the net isn't just the island. The net is actually like international, worldwide at this point. So we have a UK, Paris, we have California, New York, we have New Mexico, we have Palm Beach, Florida. That's a hell of a lot of people. And you'll notice most of these locations that are in the US are along coastal regions. And it makes perfect sense when you look to see the island. The island, the only access that you're getting to from the island is either a helicopter or a yacht or a boat. Those are the only ways you're going to get to that location. Um, I don't think you could take a jet there because I don't, based on what I've seen from like the topographic maps and everything, uh, I don't think there's enough flat area for a landing strip on either one of the islands. But regardless of all that, I mean, it doesn't even really matter. But you'll notice that it seems like a lot of these people are going in, and then and by the way, the Epstein, the quote unquote Epstein Island, isn't just a island, it's two islands. There's Greater St. James, and then there's Little St. James. And Little St. James is the resort area where you have all the buildings, you have the famous white and blue building and all that sort of stuff that everybody likes to show pictures of. And then you also have the much larger island, which the much larger island appears to be basically, from what I've seen, when you use Google Maps, you can go over it and you can kind of see, and there's a lot of yacht traffic back and forth from that island. So there's clearly a lot of people that are going to and from that island, from the bigger island, and then they're taking smaller boats from there to, or maybe even a helicopter ride. I don't know, but they're taking a very quick ride back and forth from the larger island to the smaller island, and then the smaller island is more like it's like a little miniature town, um, and there's like a bunch of buildings. So it's like a little village. So you have a bunch of people that are living there, and they're taking care of the place, and then Epstein and Maxwell are treated like, the emperors of the island, I guess, if you will. Um, so that tells you enough to know that, like, there's no way that neither one of these people didn't know what was happening, in terms of the massage business, right? Like, all that stuff is happening. There's no way you wouldn't know, you know? Um, but outside of that, um, that overall kind of starts to paint you a bigger picture. So now you know that everything that's happening it's actually on a much wider scale than you previously thought of, and the list is massively bigger than we thought it was. Because everybody was simply looking at the massage list for Palm Beach and thinking that that was, because when you scroll to the very end of the black book, right, there's this one big damning page where it's like massage list and there's like stars on it, and all this stuff, and it's like this big thing, like everybody goes to that and they're like, oh, that's the list. Well, not necessarily, because I mean, there's also a massage list for the UK in the book. There's also a massage list for Paris, France. There's a massage list for New York. There's a massage list for California. There's a massage list for New Mexico. And then there's a massage list for Palm Beach. And there's one for the island, too. So, uh, in my mind, that just implies that literally every property that this guy owns is being used as a brothel, and he's sending these quote unquote masseuses to these brothels to do business. So if you really want, and I think we need to step further away from that narrative of oh, the island. No, it's not the island anymore. It's all the masseuse list is what it is. If you want a list of Jeffrey Epstein's all the people that participated with Jeffrey Epstein in trafficking and abusing people, all you have to do is look at the massage lists, um, and then you have your full list right there. That's everybody that's partaken in Jeffrey Epstein's business, right? Whether they did so knowingly or unknowingly, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, this dude was selling an elite service, like a Uber Black version of a massage parlor, who also did things under the table. You know what I mean? So, that's where it's at. So that's the entirety of it right now. And I think we need to get away from this idea of, oh, it's just the island or it's everybody on the flight logs, because the flight logs themselves aren't even accurate. They don't even, like, if you go and you look at the flight logs and then you compare it to the black book, which I did a long time ago. I made a comparison and I notated all the names between the two, and the black book has way more names in it than the flight logs do, because of the flight logs are just a small fraction. Like, you have to consider that some of these people are so elite, they have their own plane. They don't need Jeffrey Epstein's plane to get, to and from, wherever, right? They don't have to do that. They don't need Jeffrey Epstein's plane and money and boats and all that stuff. They don't need any of that. They have their own. and they can get in and off the island perfectly fine, without Jeffrey Epstein. So, um, and like I said, it's not even just him. Like a reason, I'm sure there's a major reason why there's a New Mexico location, a California location, right? So when you look at the New Mexico location, I'm pretty sure a large part of that New Mexico location is because he has a fairly large clientele base near the New Mexico location. If you look at the New York location, that's the exact reason why everything's there, right? The New York one's there because there's already a lot of people that have been basically outed as being weirdos, um, for the New York location. And then not only that, but now the UK location and the Paris location. So, and when you take that in consideration, and you take that into consideration along with the fact that not necessarily every name circled in the book is a bad name, you start to understand that the book itself, you don't even need the names to be circled. The names that are circled in the book are circled because they are business connections. And that becomes obvious because when you start looking through the book, you start seeing that it's not just people that are circled, it's businesses that are circled. And the reason that the businesses are circled is because these are the business connections that Jeffrey Epstein is using to furnish, to network with other like really rich people, and um, meet up and sort of like learn who's who and attend these like social gatherings and parties and all this sort of stuff. So it's more than just, like I said, it's more than just the island. The island seems to be just like a very small fraction of the totality of what Jeffrey Epstein was running. And it's very clearly he was running like a pseudo massage business. And this, like I said, it's international at this point. It's not just in the Virgin Islands. It's not just the United States. It's reached out further than that. So I think the scope of this is widened quite a bit at this point, and I think the release, even though the release isn't fully redacted like it's been requested, um, I think this has given everybody like a lot of information, and it's given everybody enough information that you can kind of see that it's not this like weird evil doctor, evil guy on an island in the middle of nowhere scheming and doing all this weird stuff. It's more or less just this like elite trafficking ring that I think we all kind of had this feeling, kind of existed, but nobody was ever able to really quite put their finger on it. And this is basically just what we know so far. So we'll have to wait longer, and hopefully, we'll be able to see more information come out, and maybe hopefully they'll abide by the agreement and they'll redact the or unredact the black book itself. So hopefully they'll be able to get through that. So, anyways, I just want to leave this here. I don't want to go on too long about this. I just want to be real quick about this and just point out that I think we know exactly how the entire Jeffrey Epstein empire is built at this point. It's not really super important. It's just led us to the point where there's nothing of value left in the Epstein files other than um, the lists themselves. So the massage lists need to be unredacted and fully released, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else. And I'm sorry, like if your political party member or whatever is on that list, like, oh well, like I don't care. I don't care you know if the Pope is on the list. If the Pope's on the list, oh well, send him to prison too. I don't really care at this point. Like if your name is on that list and you're on the massage list, like it's clear that that is the exact business model that was being run. And you know like I'm sure some of them probably weren't doing it to be creepy, but like, oh well, it seems like the greater part of the people that were partaking in that event were taking in it because they are creeps. And not only that, like, why the hell would you show up to a New York apartment that's got like weird, like creepy, perverted art all over the wall, right? Like you know what you're there for. You know what I mean? Like, there's no excuse. There's no, well, I just, I wanted a massage. Like, no, buddy. Like, come on. There's like naked pictures on the wall. There's, creepy stuff all over the place. At one of these places, they had like a chandelier, somebody who was like hanging by the neck, that looked like they just got lynched in the middle of the house. That's creepy. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, you're obviously not just showing up there to party. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of a weird place to be. So, and the fact that they also had like toys and stuff, like adult toys throughout these apartments and stuff, like that just tells me that you knew why you were going there, right? Like, and it wasn't for the massages. So, uh, I don't think anybody on that list is innocent, to be perfectly honest with you. So, anybody that tries to make that excuse, I think they're just trying to gaslight you at this point. Um, and as far as the federal government's concerned, they should just straight up release that list. That, like, there should be no delay at this point. Just release that list. We know who's on it. We know what's what at this point, and you just need to release the massage list. And if you're not going to do that, then you don't need to get our vote anymore. And I truly feel that way. Like, I I'm at a point where I'm not okay with my tax dollars going to human trafficking rings and being subsidized by politicians, uh, for this creep show to keep happening. Like, I'm just done with it. So, uh, if you're not going to release the list, which we know what the list is now, like, there's no reason to keep hiding it. If you're not going to release the list, then, you know, don't ask for my vote, because I'm not going to give it to you. Like, you know, that's how it is now, and that's how it should be. You should be willing to burn it all to the ground. That's 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 what it's going to take in order for this list to get dropped. So, um, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't get too doomer pilled about it. Um, you know, if you like this content, let me know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And hopefully I don't have to make too much more of this content, because it's really gross and disgusting, and I'm not really enjoying it.